The flames sang when Seraya Vale could not. That was the moment the fire court stopped laughing. A heartbeat earlier, she had stood alone beneath the dragonbone arches of Emberfall's royal hall, hands locked before her ruined throat, while nobles in gold masks waited for a servant girl to humiliate herself for their entertainment. They had ordered her to sing. Not because she was gifted. Because everyone knew she was not. Seraya Vale had once had a voice. No one in the palace spoke of that kindly. They spoke of it the way cruel people spoke of broken cups and limping dogs, with pity sharpened into amusement. As a child, she had been found near the lower furnaces after a fire-right accident. Throat scarred. Voice reduced to a breath that barely shaped sound. Since then, she had served in halls where dragonfire burned brighter than any servant's life. A girl with a ruined voice made an easy joke. A silent maid made an easier offering. High Flame-Priestess Oratha Vane had smiled when she chose Seraya from the servant line. "Let the ash girl sing," Oratha said, her red gold veil falling over a face too beautiful to be kind. "The court has been too solemn since the war omens began." A ripple of laughter moved through the nobles. Seraya looked at the obsidian throne. Dragon King Vaelor Draven sat beneath 7 hanging braziers, shaped like dragon skulls. Black hair swept back, golden eyes unreadable under the firelight. His hand rested on a ring of black dragon bone. 3 nights earlier, he had found Seraya in the lower flame corridor. She had been carrying ash from the queen's old shrine, when the candles suddenly bent toward her. Not away from the draft. Not toward the open vents. Toward her. One candle flame had stretched like a living thing and brushed the air near her mouth. Seraya had stumbled back. Vaelor had stepped from the shadows before she could run. He should not have known her name. But he did. "Seraya," he said. Her whole body went still. Kings did not speak servant names unless they meant to punish them. His gaze had dropped to the scar at her throat, then to the candle flames still trembling toward her lips. "If anyone asks you to sing," he said quietly, "do not force your voice." She had stared at him, unable to ask why. His jaw tightened as footsteps sounded nearby. Let the fire answer first. Then he turned away and became king again. Now, before the entire fire court, Oratha lifted one pale hand toward Seraya. "Sing." Seraya's stomach hollowed. She looked again at Vaelor. For one impossible breath, she thought he would stop it. His golden eyes held hers. Then he said, "Let her sing." The words struck harder than laughter. A servant's humiliation was one thing. A king permitting it was another. The court waited. Above the balconies, 3 gold masks leaned forward too eagerly. Seraya tried. Not because they deserved sound. Because silence in front of nobles became permission for them to write whatever story they wanted. She opened her mouth. Nothing came. Only a cracked breath scraped through the scar in her throat. The nobles smiled. Someone whispered, "Ash, throat." Oratha's smile widened. "Louder, child. The Dragon King cannot hear your devotion." Seraya's hands curled into fists. Her eyes burned. She would not cry. Not here. Not for them. She tried again. Pain flared down her throat, sharp and humiliating. A broken whisper left her mouth, too faint to be called song. Laughter rose. Then the central brazier went out. The hall fell silent. One by one, every flame in the fire court bowed low. Not to Vaelor. Not to Oratha. To Seraya. The 7 dragon skull braziers above the throne opened their burning jaws. Fire poured upward in long silver gold streams, twisting into a shape like a crown made of flame and wings. Then the flames began to sing. A lullaby. Soft. Ancien. So beautiful that every noble forgot to breathe. Seraya did not know the song. But Vaelor did. The Dragon King stood so suddenly his throne scraped black stone. His face had gone pale beneath the firelight. Oratha's smile vanished. Her fingers closed around the edge of her veil, as if hiding a blade beneath it. The flames sang on, gentle and mournful, carrying a woman's melody through the hall. Not Seraya's voice. Not yet. A queen's voice. Vaelor took one step down from the throne. "Stop," Oratha snapped. The flames rose higher. The lullaby became clearer. Seraya felt the song inside her bones, not entering her throat, but circling it like something that had lived outside her body for years. waiting for her to stop bleeding long enough to hear it. Vaelor whispered. My mother sang that. The court went cold. Queen Auralyn Draven had died before Seraya was old enough to remember the shape of her own voice. The official story said the queen burned in a dragonfire fever. No one sang her songs. No one named her private lullabies. No servant was supposed to know them. Seraya did not know them. The fire did. Oratha stepped forward, eyes sharp with fear. Majesty, this is mimicry. A furnace trick. Vaelor did not look at her. He looked at Seraya. Not with triumph. Not with relief. With guilt. Seraya understood enough to hate him. He had known the fire might answer. He had let them laugh until it did. The central brazier burst open. A line of flame wrote itself across the black stone between Seraya and the throne. Flamesong lives. The court recoiled. Seraya stared at the words. No, she was not royal. Not chosen. Not anything the court could kneel to and cage. She was a servant girl with a ruined throat and years of swallowed pain. But the flames kept singing for her. Oratha recovered faster than everyone else. Seize her. Vaelor's voice cut through the hall. No one touches her. The guards froze. Oratha turned slowly toward him. Majesty, if she is flame, song, then the right belongs to the court. The right belongs to the fire. Vaelor said. The flames roared approval. Seraya stepped back. The movement drew every eye. Vaelor saw it and stopped himself from coming closer. Good. Some distances needed to burn before they could be crossed. Seraya lifted a shaking hand to her throat. Her voice came out as almost nothing. You knew. The hall heard because the flames carried the broken whisper. Vaelor's face tightened. Yes. The answer did not comfort her. It only gave the wound a shape. You made me sing. I made the fire answer first. The flames flickered, uneasy. Seraya's eyes stung. That does not make it mercy. Vaelor lowered his head once. No. The word was quiet. Enough to be honest. Not enough to be forgiven. Oratha's veil stirred, though no wind touched it. Majesty, your enemies are in this hall. If her real voice had awakened in her throat, they would have taken it before the fire could shield her. Seraya turned toward her. The priestess had said too much. Vaelor's eyes sharpened. The flames shifted. Not singing now. Listening. From the shadowed balconies above the court, 3 noble masks cracked at once. Behind each mask, a thin red flame burned where an eye should have been. Spies. Listening charms. Waiting for a sound that had never come. The court erupted. Oratha's face went still. Vaelor looked at Seraya again. Now she understood the trap. Not all of it. Enough. They had not wanted her to sing for amusement. They had wanted her real voice. And Vaelor had forced the moment into the open so the flames would answer before the spies could steal what lived inside her. Still, he had used her shame as the doorway. Still, the court had laughed. Still, her pain had been part of his strategy. The lullaby changed. The queen's melody thinned into words. Auralyn's voice rose from the central fire. Name the throat that was ruined. Seraya went cold. Oratha took one step back. Vaelor turned toward the priestess. The flames bent toward Seraya's scarred throat, gentle as hands, terrible as judgment. The central brazier opened wider. Inside the fire, a memory began to form. A child near the lower furnaces. A silver knife. A priestess red-gold veil. Seraya stopped breathing. The flames sang one final line. Not lullaby now. Come on. Name who stole her song. The silver knife appeared in the flame before Oratha could run. It did not fall from a guard's belt. It did not slide from a sleeve. It formed inside the central brazier, blade first, silver edge glowing white-hot as Queen Auralyn's lullaby turned sharp enough to cut the air. Seraya stopped breathing. Her hand flew to her scarred throat. The fire showed the knife suspended in gold flame, then turned its point toward High Flame-Priestess Oratha Vane. Every dragon skull brazier in the fire court bent toward her. Oratha did not step back this time. She smiled. Barely. Enough to prove she had been waiting for the fire to accuse her. A child's injury, she said calmly. A furnace accident. The court recorded it. The central flame roared. The knife spun. Inside the fire, a memory opened. Not Seraya's stolen voice first. The hand that cut it free. A younger Oratha knelt beside the lower furnaces. red gold veil wrapped tightly over her hair, silver knife in one hand. A small girl lay against the ash stone, eyes wide with terror, both hands pressed to her throat though no wound had opened yet. Seraya knew the child before the memory finished forming. Herself, small, covered in soot, still trying to sing. The girl's voice in the memory was thin, frightened, beautiful, not court-trained, not noble, alive. The sound struck Seraya so hard her knees almost failed. Vaelor moved one step. The flames snapped between them, not to protect Seraya from him, to judge him too. He stopped. Good. The fire remembered who had made her stand before the court. Oratha lifted her chin. Majesty, the fire is unstable. If you let it continue, it may burn the whole hall. Vaelor's eyes turned molten gold. If the hall burns because it finally tells the truth, then let the court learn what heat means. Oratha's smile thinned. The memory continued. Young Seraya tried to crawl backward. Oratha caught her chin with 2 fingers. Do not be afraid, the priestess whispered. A voice like yours does not belong in a throat. The silver knife touched the child's skin. Seraya made a sound in the present. Not a word. Not even a cry. A broken breath torn through old pain. The flames answered by singing louder. The knife in the memory did not cut flesh the way a butcher's blade would. It cut sound. A bright thread of golden song pulled from the child's open mouth, trembling like a living thing. The court watched in horror. Oratha turned toward the nobles. Flame. Song must be preserved before it destroys its vessel. That is law. The fire spat sparks at her feet. Auralyn's voice rose from the brazier. Law did not hold the knife. The flames bent toward Oratha's hand. Her fingers clenched around the edge of her veil. Beneath the red gold fabric, something moved. A hidden charm. A listening knot. Seraya saw it. So did Vaelor. He drew his sword. Oratha snapped. Do not be sentimental, Majesty. If the girl's true note wakes in her throat, every enemy listening will own a piece of it before you cross the floor. Above the balconies, the 3 cracked gold masks leaned forward. The red flames in their eye sockets flared. Listening. Hungry. Waiting. The memory's golden voice thread trembled between past and present. Seraya felt it near her own mouth. It wanted to return. It wanted to become sound. The spies wanted the same thing. Vaelor lifted his sword toward the balconies. Oratha's voice cut through the hall. Strike them, and you scatter the listening charms. Her first true note will split 3 ways before the fire can catch it. Vaelor froze. For the first time since the flames began singing, he looked truly trapped. Seraya understood the shape of it. If Vaelor killed the spies, they might steal what broke loose. If he waited, Oratha could claim Seraya under fire court law. If Seraya forced her voice, the very thing hidden inside her pain might be captured. The flames circled her scarred throat. Gentle, waiting, not commanding. That mattered. The queen's lullaby softened. Auralyn's voice whispered through the central fire. Choose what the fire may carry. Seraya's eyes burned. Everyone in that hall had chosen for her. Oratha had cut. Vaelor had staged. The court had laughed. Even the flames had sung before she understood why. Now the fire waited. Seraya lifted one shaking hand. Not to her throat. To the brazier. Her broken whisper scraped out. Show. Pain tore through the scar. The flames leaned closer. She swallowed blood. Who paid her? The fire court went silent. Oratha's face changed. There. Fear. Not of Seraya's power. Of Seraya's choice. The golden voice thread in the memory stopped reaching for Seraya's throat and turned instead toward Oratha's hidden charm. The red gold veil caught fire at the edge. Oratha ripped it away. Beneath it lay a chain of tiny ruby listening beads stitched into the fabric, each bead holding a trapped ember. The flames recognized them. Queen Auralyn's lullaby became a command. The ruby beads cracked one by one. Inside each bead, a voice whispered payment. A noble lord. A foreign flame prince. A war widow from the southern dragon houses. Then one voice deeper than the rest. Masked. Ancien. Bring me the first note before the king hears it. Vaelor's face hardened. Oratha tried to crush the beads in her hand. The flames struck her wrist. She screamed and dropped them. The 3 gold-masked spies on the balcony moved at once. Their masks split open. Red, listening flames shot toward Seraya like spears. Vaelor lunged. The flames stopped him again. Not his strike. His instinct. Seraya saw why. If he saved her by force, the first note would still be his battle. His rescue. His claim. The fire wanted her choice. Seraya stepped toward the central brazier. Her whole body shook. The red listening flames closed in. The court screamed. Oratha shouted, "Do not let her near the queen. Fire!" Seraya ignored her. She placed both hands into the air above the brazier, not touching flame, letting it surround her fingers. Her voice came out broken. "Carry it." The central fire opened. The red listening flames struck, but they did not reach her throat. The queen fire swallowed them first. All 3 spy masks exploded in silver-gold flame. The nobles behind them collapsed. Their listening charms burned hollow. Only exposed faces. Terrified and ordinary beneath stolen magic, the court recoiled. Seraya staggered. Using even that broken whisper had cost her. Her throat felt raw, scraped open from the inside. Vaelor stepped forward again. The fire allowed one step. Only one. He stopped there. "What do you need?" he asked. "Not what happened. Not let me explain. What do you need?" Seraya looked at him through tears she refused to shed. Truth. The word barely existed. The flames carried it. Vaelor turned toward Oratha. Then, truth. Oratha laughed, breathless from pain. Truth? She would have burned if I had left that song inside her. The fire did not deny the danger. That frightened Seraya more. Auralyn's voice rose again. Flame. Song was never meant to live only in the throat. The golden voice thread in the memory moved away from the child's mouth. It flowed into the furnace fire behind her. Not destroyed. Hidden. Oratha's knife had not killed Seraya's voice. It had driven it into dragonfire. The central brazier blazed white. Across the black stone, new words wrote themselves in flame. Voice sealed. Not lost. Seraya's knees nearly gave. Vaelor looked as if the words had struck him in the chest. Oratha's face twisted. A sealed voice is still court property. The flames roared. This time the whole fire court shook. The dragon skull braziers opened their jaws wider, and from each one came a different note of the queen's lullaby. 7 notes. 7 fires. 7 pieces of a song Seraya had never been allowed to finish. The notes circled above the hall and sank toward the central brazier. There, inside the queen fire, something began to take shape. Not a face, not a crown. A small, golden flame, shaped like a sleeping bird, curled around a child's voice. Seraya pressed a hand to her throat. Her voice. Not in her body. Not gone. Waiting inside dragonfire. Vaelor Draven. Auralyn hidit. The sleeping flamebird opened one eye. Queen Auralyn's lullaby faded into a single spoken line. She hid the child's song where thieves could not swallow it. Oratha stumbled back. Vaelor's sword lowered slowly. Seraya stared at the flamebird, unable to move. The fire did not give it back. Not yet. It waited. The same way Seraya had waited in silence for years. Then the flamebird lifted its head and sang one note. The sound did not come from Seraya's throat. It came from every fire in the court. And every dragon sealed beneath Emberfall answered from below the palace. Not in rage. In recognition of the song they had been buried for hearing. The dragons beneath Emberfall did not roar for the king. They sang back to Seraya. The first note rose through the black stone floor like a chain, remembering it had once been a song. The fire court cracked beneath the nobles' feet. The 7 dragon skull braziers flared white gold. And the sleeping flamebird inside the central brazier lifted its head higher, still curled around Seraya's stolen child voice. Seraya stood frozen before it, one hand pressed to her ruined throat. The sound below was not rage. Not yet. It was recognition. Recognition of the song they had been buried for hearing. Oratha recovered first. She always did. Seal the lower flames, she snapped. Priests in red gold robes moved toward the court pillars, each carrying a hooked fire chain. The chains were made of black iron and ruby glass, old enough that even the flames bent away from them. Vaelor turned on her. You sealed dragons beneath my palace? Oratha's smile came back thin and cold. Your ancestors sealed them, Majesty. I maintained the law. The floor shook again. Another dragon answered from below. A deeper note. Wounded. Waiting. The flame bird in the brazier trembled. Seraya felt the note pull toward her throat, asking entrance. No. Not asking. Offering. That difference mattered. The flames had not forced her. The dragons had not commanded her. The only people who had done that stood in silk, gold, and law. Oratha lifted both hands. If Flame Song completes, every lower seal will break. Every dragon buried beneath Emberfall will wake. The throne will burn before sunset. Vaelor's face hardened. For one breath, the court looked to him. King. Owner. Master of fire. Seraya looked too, though she hated that she did. This was the moment men like him usually chose the palace first and called it duty. Vaelor stepped down from the throne. The flames watched him. So did Seraya. He removed the black dragonbone ring from his hand and dropped it onto the stone between them. The court gasped. Oratha went still. Vaelor's voice carried through the hall. No flame song belongs to my throne. The queen fire flared. The lower dragons answered with a third note. Vaelor continued, rougher now. No voice hidden in fire answers because I command it. No servant's pain becomes royal property because the court fears what she carries. Seraya's throat tightened. Not forgiveness. Not yet, but the fire did not strike him. That mattered. Oratha's eyes narrowed. Beautiful words. Useless ones. If she chooses wrong, your kingdom dies. Vaelor looked at Seraya. He did not step closer. What do you need? The question was softer this time. Seraya looked at the flame bird. Her voice waited inside it, golden and small. Her first instinct was hunger. To take it. To rip it back. To scream so loudly every noble who had laughed would choke on the sound. The dragons below sang again. The note hurt. Not because it attacked her, because it understood her. Seraya raised one hand toward the flame bird. Oratha's priests snapped their fire chains around the pillars. The chains tightened. The dragon's song below broke into pain. Seraya flinched. The flame bird cried out without opening its beak. Oratha's voice cut through the hall. There, do you hear it? That is what your song wakes, child. Suffering. If you continue, you break the seals. If you stop, the kingdom survives. Seraya stared at her. The trap was clean. Cruel. If Seraya chose her voice, Oratha would blame her for the dragon's release. If she refused it, the fire court would keep her sealed forever. Vaelor stepped toward the nearest fire chain. Oratha snapped. Touch it! And the spell redirects into her throat. He stopped. His hands clenched. Good. For once, he could not solve the wound with a sword. Seraya looked at the chain. Then at the flame bird. Then at the dragons below. She did not need the whole song. Not yet. One note. One truth. Her broken whisper scraped through her scar. Only one. The flame bird opened both eyes. The queen fire bowed. Oratha's face changed. No. Seraya lifted her chin. One note. Mine to choose. The dragons beneath Emberfall went silent. Waiting. Seraya reached into the heat. Not with her hand. With the broken place in her throat. The flame bird unfurled one wing and released a single golden note. It did not enter Seraya's mouth. It hovered before her lips. Varm. Terrifying. Alive. The three exposed spies on the balcony began to convulse as their burned listening charms tried to wake again. Red sparks crawled from their masks toward the note. Oratha smiled. You cannot hold even one. Seraya looked at the red sparks, then whispered, Carry truth. The note flew past her, not into her throat, into the central fire. The queen fire exploded upward, and the single note struck every ruby fire chain at once. The chains did not break. They sang. Each chain released what it had been made to silence. Not dragon roars, but names. A buried dragon named Therix, sealed for hearing Queen Auralyn hide Seraya's voice. A silver hatchling named Mavrin, sealed for repeating the lullaby. An old flame drake named Oris, sealed because he refused to burn a child's song from memory. The court went silent. The dragons had not been buried because they were monsters. They had been buried because they remembered. Vaelor's face went white. Oratha's jaw tightened. Seraya swayed, pain tearing through her throat from even that single note. Vaelor moved one step. Stopped. At your elbow? He asked. Seraya looked at him, then gave the smallest nod. He came no closer than she allowed and steadied only her elbow. No claim. No risque. Only enough to keep her standing while her truth burned. Oratha saw the court shifting, fear losing its shape. So she played her last law. By fire court right, she said, voice ringing. Any flame. Song vessel that wakes sealed dragons belongs under priestess custody until the throne declares her safe. Vaelor's eyes turned lethal. But Seraya spoke first. No. The word was faint. The flames carried it. Oratha looked at her. You do not know the law. Seraya's scarred throat burned. No, I know cages. The queen fire roared. The single note above the brazier sharpened into a thin line of gold and turned toward Oratha's burned listening beads on the floor. Seraya breathed through pain. Show who paid her. Oratha froze. The note struck the ruby beads. They cracked open. The voices inside did not whisper this time. They sang. One payment came from a southern flame prince. One from a noble house that wanted Vaelor's throne weak. One from a masked ancient voice that made every fire in the hall recoil. Keep the queen's lullaby buried. Keep the child's first note sealed. When the dragons answer, send me the name of the one they recognize. Vaelor's hand tightened at Seraya's elbow. Oratha stepped back. The lower dragons sang again. This time, not to Seraya. To the masked voice hidden inside the bead. The single golden note spun above the court and became a name made of flame. Not complete. Only the first part. Title. The Ash Listener. Oratha went pale. Vaelor whispered. That name was erased from the royal wars. Not defeated, Oratha whispered. Erased so no one would call it back. The flamebird curled protectively around Seraya's still-sealed voice. The buried dragons below Emberfall sang one final answer. Deep enough to shake dust from the dragonbone arches. They were not asking to be freed. Not yet. They were naming the one who had paid to keep Flamesong buried. The central fire split open. Inside it, a shadowed figure appeared for one heartbeat. A masked listener standing among blackened dragon eggs, holding a silver bowl full of stolen notes. Then the vision vanished. The flame wrote one sentence across the floor. The Ash Listener still has the first song. The Ash Listener's shadow reached through the central fire before anyone could speak. It was not a body. Not fully. Only a long black hand made of smoke and old ash, stretching from inside the split flame toward the sleeping flamebird curled around Seraya's stolen voice. For the first time, the flamebird looked afraid. Its golden wings folded tighter around the child song inside its chest. Seraya felt the pull in her ruined throat. Not pain first. Fear. Something beyond the fire court had heard the first note. And now it wanted the rest. The black hand slid closer. Vaelor moved. The queen fire snapped once, warning him back. He stopped before the old mistake repeated itself. Oratha smiled through her fear. You see? The girl is not a blessing. She is a doorway. Seraya turned toward her. The flames bent with her. Oratha's smile faded. Seraya's broken whisper came out thin. You opened it. The central fire roared. Oratha's ruby beads cracked across the floor, lifted into the air. Each bead glowed with a payment voice. Each voice circled Oratha like a chain. Vaelor's eyes burned gold. Name what you sold. Oratha lifted her chin. I protected Emberfall. The flamebird cried out as the Ash Listener's shadow touched one golden feather. Seraya staggered. The stolen note inside the bird trembled. Vaelor stepped toward Oratha, sword half raised. Seraya forced one word through blood. No? He stopped. Good. Oratha did not get death before truth. Seraya looked at the fire. Name her price. The ruby beads cracked wider. The voices sang together. A southern flame prince promised armies. A noble house promised silence. A war widow promised dragonbone keys. Then the masked ancient voice returned, colder than the others. Keep the child's song sealed until the first song answers. Then send me the throat that carries it. The fire court went silent. Oratha's face drained of color. Vaelor lowered his sword slowly. You were never protecting the throne, he said. Oratha's eyes flashed. I was protecting it from her. No, Seraya whispered. The flames carried the word. You were saving me for him. The queen fire struck Oratha's veil. The red gold cloth burned away, revealing a black ash mark at the base of her throat. A listener's brand. The ash listener's shadow pulled harder on the flame bird. The bird screamed. Every flame in the court flickered. Below the palace, the sealed dragons answered with a broken chord. Not rage. Fine. Seraya pressed both hands to her throat. The song wanted to return. Not all of it. Another note. If she took too much, the spies might wake again. If she took nothing, the ash listener would pull it from the fire. Oratha saw her hesitation. Choose, child. Take your voice and break the seals, or leave it and let the court survive. Vaelor turned toward the dragon skull braziers. Break the custody law. The priests froze. Oratha snapped. You cannot. Vaelor removed the black dragonbone ring from the floor and held it over the central fire. The fire court law that names Flamesong as court property is ended. The braziers flared. Oratha screamed, That law protects the old seals. Vaelor looked at Seraya, not asking her to trust him, not asking her to forgive him, only naming the cost in front of everyone. Then the seals will no longer be protected by theft. He dropped the ring into the queen fire. The black dragonbone cracked. A shock of gold flame hit Vaelor's chest and threw him to one knee. The court gasped. Seraya flinched. He stayed down, one hand braced on the stone, jaw clenched against pain. The fire was judging him too. Good. The custody law burned above the court in black letters, then split apart into ash. The ash listener's shadow recoiled for one breath. Only one. Seraya understood. Vaelor had opened space. He had not solved it. The choice was still hers. The flamebird turned its golden eye toward her. The second note glowed beneath its wing. Seraya stepped closer. Her throat ached as if old scars were remembering teeth. I choose one note, she whispered. The queen fire bowed. Not the whole song. The buried dragons went silent. Waiting. Seraya lifted her hand. The flamebird opened its wing and released a second note. This one was lower than the first. Warmer. Sether. It hovered before Seraya's lips, not entering, not claiming. She looked at Oratha. Show why Auralyn hid it. The second note flew into the central brazier. The fire opened. Queen Auralyn appeared in memory, kneeling beside a furnace chamber beneath the palace. In her arms was a child wrapped in ash-gray cloth. Seraya. Beside them, dragons pressed their chained heads low, listening to the queen's lullaby. Auralyn was crying, not from fear, from knowing. The first song is waking, she whispered. If he hears this child, he will know she carries the road back to it. A younger Oratha stood behind her with the silver knife. Give her to the court. Auralyn looked at the chained dragons. No. The court will turn her throat into a lock. The memory shifted. Auralyn placed her hand over baby Seraya's mouth, not to silence her, but to protect her song from leaving too soon. The first song does not belong to her alone. Auralyn whispered. It belongs to the dragons who sang before the throne existed. The fire court shook. Vaelor lifted his head. Oratha whispered. No. Seraya stared into the flames. Before the throne. Before fire court law. Before kings named dragonfire property. There had been a song, and the sealed dragons had been buried for remembering it. The ash listener's shadow surged again. Furious now. The black hand pierced through the central flame and closed around the second note. Seraya felt it in her throat like fingers. She almost fell. Vaelor tried to rise, but the burned custody law still held him on one knee. Oratha laughed shakily. Now you understand. She is not a girl. She is a map. Seraya looked at her, then at the flamebird, then at the black hand stealing the note. Her whisper came out broken. No. The flame carried it, but this time, the buried dragons answered with her. The second note tore free from the ash listener's grip and shot down through the floor. Below Emberfall, chains began to sing. One dragon voice rose, then another, then dozens. The central fire wrote a single sentence across the court. The first song is under the throne. The ash listener's shadow vanished. The flamebird curled around Seraya's still-sealed voice, trembling but alive. Vaelor stared at the sentence beneath his knees. Under the throne. Not under the furnace. Not under the court. Under him. And from below the obsidian throne, something ancient began singing back. The song under the throne did not sound like power. It sounded like a child trying not to cry. Seraya felt it before the court understood what it was. The note rose through the obsidian floor beneath Vaelor's knees, thin and ancient, wrapped in so much ash that it should have been dead. But it was not dead. It was waiting. The flame bird in the central brazier folded itself tighter around Seraya's sealed voice. The buried dragons below Emberfall answered the throne song with a low, broken harmony. Vaelor stared at the sentence burning beneath him. The first song is under the throne. His face changed. Note shock. Recognition. The kind a man felt when every law he inherited suddenly pointed back at his own seat. Oratha saw it too. Her fear sharpened into opportunity. There, she said, voice ringing through the fire court. Now you see why the old seals must remain. The throne was built over the first song because the first song cannot be ruled. Seraya looked at the obsidian throne. Black, polished, sacred, hungry. The song underneath it trembled again. Not asking to be worshipped. Not asking to be freed by a king. Asking to be heard. Vaelor tried to stand, but the burned custody law still held him on one knee. Gold flame wrapped across his chest. Not killing him. Not sparing him. Judging him, Oratha stepped toward the throne. Majesty, command the court to reseal the lower fire. Give the girl into priestess custody. Let the throne survive. Seraya's throat burned. The ash listener had called her a map. Oratha had called her a vessel. The court would call her danger. Different words. Same cage. Vaelor lifted his head. No. The fire around his chest tightened. He clenched his jaw but did not take back the word. Oratha's eyes flashed. Then you choose a servant's song over the throne. Vaelor looked at Seraya. Only for a moment. Then he looked away, as if refusing to make her the excuse. I choose to hear what my throne was built to silence. The queen fire roared. The flamebird opened one wing. Seraya felt the second note return to the central fire, trembling near the third. Not hers yet. Not safe yet. Oratha's burned listener's mark pulsed black at her throat. She lifted both hands. Fire court law predates your guilt, Majesty. The priests raised their hooked fire chains again. This time they did not aim at the dragons below. They aimed at the throne. Ruby chains shot across the hall and wrapped around the obsidian seat, locking the song underneath it. The childlike note choked. Seraya doubled over as if the chain had tightened around her own throat. Vaelor's eyes went bright gold. He reached for his sword. The judgment flame slammed him harder to the floor. Not by Oratha. By the queen fire. Seraya understood. If he broke the chains with royal force, the court would call the first song his to release. Another king owning another voice. She forced herself upright. Her whisper scraped out. Do not. Vaelor froze. The fire loosened around him by one breath. Seraya stepped toward the throne. Every step hurt. The flamebird watched her from the brazier, golden eyes wide and afraid. Oratha smiled coldly. Yes, child. Come closer. Choose your song and break your king's palace with your own mouth. Seraya stopped before the throne. She did not touch it. She looked at the ruby chains, then at the flamebird, then down toward the song beneath the stone. I choose one note, she whispered. The court went silent. Oratha's smile faded. Seraya lifted a trembling hand. Not the whole song. The buried dragons quieted. Waiting. The flamebird opened its other wing and released a third note. This one was not beautiful. It was small, cracked, almost unfinished. It hovered before Seraya's lips like a child too frightened to step into light. Seraya did not take it into her throat. She breathed toward it. Show who put the first song under the throne. The third note sank into the obsidian floor. The throne answered. A memory rose. A hall older than Emberfall. No dragon bone arch. No fire court. No priests. Only dragons gathered around a woman with flame in her hair and a newborn song in her hands. Not a queen crowned by men. A dragon queen before crowns. She sang, and dragons lowered their heads not in obedience, but in recognition. Then the memory darkened. Men came with black stone, ruby chains, and the first fire court law. A king Seraya did not know placed his throne above the song and said, "What cannot be commanded must be buried beneath command." The memory cracked. Oratha whispered, "Enough." But the third note was not finished. It showed Queen Auralyn centuries later, kneeling beneath the same throne, one hand pressed to the floor, hearing the first song answer baby Seraya's cry. Auralyn wept. "She is not the first song," the queen whispered. "She is the first throated as trusted in generations." Seraya stopped breathing. Not the song, not the owner. Trusted. That word hurt more than power. Oratha lunged for the flamebird. Vaelor moved at the same time. This time he did not reach for Oratha. He reached for the throne. The queen fire wrapped around his arms, burning through his sleeves. He did not stop. Seraya turned sharply. "Vaelor." He looked at her through the pain. "I cannot free your voice." His hands closed around the throne's black armrests. "But I can stop sitting on what buried it." The court gasped. Vaelor tore the obsidian throne from its base. Black fire erupted. The ruby chains snapped tight, cutting into his hands. He did not let go. The throne cracked upward, revealing a narrow wound of white gold flame beneath it. The first song rose through the opening. Not loud, not complete, but alive. Vaelor fell to one knee again, blood and gold fire running down his hands. Oratha screamed, "You have broken the royal seat." Vaelor's voice came rough. "Good." The throne split down the center. The flamebird shot from the brazier to Seraya's shoulder, curling protectively near her throat. The third note returned to it. 3 notes now. Still not the whole voice, but enough to change the air. Below the broken throne, the first song sang one line. Not to Vaelor. Not to Oratha. To Seraya. "You are not my vessel." Seraya's eyes filled. The line continued. "You are my witness." Oratha's face went pale. The ash listener's mark at her throat burned black. From inside that mark, the masked ancient voice whispered again. "Then bring me the witness alive." The fire court doors slammed shut. Every flame in the hall turned black at the tip. Oratha smiled through fear and pain. "You heard him." The priests lifted their chains. Vaelor staggered to his feet. Wounded hands open. No throne behind him. Seraya stood before the broken seat with the flamebird at her shoulder, and 3 stolen notes burning around her. The first song glowed beneath the floor. And from the sealed depths below Emberfall, the buried dragons began singing the names of every priest who had helped chain it. The buried dragons sang the first priest's name before Oratha could give the order. Vaeran Sol. A red gold priest near the left pillar froze. His fire chain slipped from his hand. The black tip of every flame in the hall bent toward him. Then the dragons sang the second name. Maroth Kael. Another priest staggered back, face whitening beneath his ceremonial paint. Seraya stood before the broken throne with the flamebird trembling against her shoulder. 3 sheepen notes circled her like small golden stars, close enough to warm her scarred throat. Not close enough to heal it. Not yet. Vaelor stood between her and the fire court, wounded hands open, the shattered throne behind him. Black gold fire ran down his arms where the ruby chains had cut him. Oratha's burned listener's mark pulsed at her throat. "Do not listen to them," she snapped. "Buried dragons will sing any name to break a seal." The floor answered with a deeper chord. Not rage. Memory. The third priest's name rose. Oratha Vane. The hall went still. Oratha's eyes sharpened. Then she smiled. "Yes," she said. "I helped chain the first song. I would do it again." The flames recoiled. Seraya's broken throat tightened. Oratha lifted both hands, and the ruby fire chains snapped upward from the priest's grips by themselves. They did not strike Vaelor this time. They struck the air around Seraya. A cage of red fire formed around her, each chain humming with stolen notes. The flamebird cried out. Vaelor moved forward. The queen fire struck the floor before his boots. He stopped. Seraya knew why. If he broke the cage for her, Oratha would claim Flamesong needed a king to contain it. Another cage wearing protection's face. Vaelor's jaw clenched until the muscle jumped. "What do you need?" Seraya looked at the red chains, then at Oratha, then at the flamebird. The cage did not burn her skin. It waited for her voice. The moment she took back too much song, the chains would close around it. Oratha stepped closer. Her veil burned away, her face finally bare. You are not a queen, child. You are not even a singer yet. You are a lock with a pulse. Seraya's eyes stung. The words were meant to wound. They almost did. Then the first song beneath the broken throne answered with one small note. Not power. Vaemindar. You are my witness. Seraya lifted one shaking hand. The flame bird opened its beak. Vaelor took a breath as if to warn her, then stopped himself. Good. The choice had to stay hers. Seraya whispered. 1. The flame bird released the fourth note. This note was sharper than the others. Not sad. Not gentle. Accusing. It hovered above Seraya's palm, and every red chain around her cage trembled. Oratha's smile vanished. Seraya's voice scraped through pain. Name what each priest sealed. The fourth note split into 3 sparks. The first struck Varen's soul. Fire burst behind him, showing a memory of his hands locking a young flame drake beneath the eastern furnace, because it had repeated Auralyn's lullaby. The second struck Maroth Kael. A memory opened of him pouring ash into a dragon hatchling's ears so it could no longer hear flame song. The third spark turned toward Oratha. She lifted a chain to block it. The spark passed through. The fire court vanished into memory. Seraya saw the lower furnace chamber years ago. Auralyn kneeling with baby Seraya. Oratha standing beside her with the silver knife. But this time, the memory did not stop at the cut. It showed Oratha after. Alone. Holding the golden thread of Seraya's child voice, while the ash listener's shadow bent over a silver bowl filled with stolen notes. Not enough, the masked voice said. Oratha's younger face trembled. The queen hid the rest. Then leave the child alive. A sealed voice can be harvested twice. The memory shattered. Seraya nearly collapsed. The cage chains tightened. Harvested twice. Vaelor's face changed. Something lethal entered it. Oratha saw and raised her chin. Yes. Kill me, Majesty. Then every chain I hold snaps inward. The red cage pulsed around Seraya's throat. Vaelor did not move. His voice came low. I will not make her pay for my rage. The queen fire flared once. Accepted. Oratha's expression hardened. The ash listener's mark at her throat opened like a black eye. A voice came through it. Bring her below. The red chains lunged. Not toward Seraya's body. Toward the flame bird. It shrieked as 3 chains caught its golden wings and dragged it away from her shoulder. Seraya felt the pull inside her ruined throat. Her stolen notes stretched thin. Vaelor stepped forward again. But this time he did not reach for the bird. He reached for the chains holding the priests. With burned hands he seized the nearest ruby link and pulled. The chain cut into his palms. The court gasped. He did not look at them. He looked at Seraya. I cannot carry your song, he said through pain. But I can carry the law that chained it. He wrapped the ruby chain around his own forearm. The red cage flickered. Oratha's eyes widened. Majesty, stop. Vaelor pulled harder. The priest custody law burned across his skin in black letters. Flamesong vessel belongs to the fire court. He read the words aloud. Then he said, False. The chain cracked. Seraya understood. He was not rescuing her voice. He was taking responsibility for the law that made it capturable. The flame bird beat its wings once. The fourth note burned brighter. Seraya lifted her bleeding hand toward it. Return. The word came out torn. The flames carried it. The fourth note struck the red chains holding the bird. One snapped. Then another. Then the third. The flame bird flew back to Seraya and struck her chest, not entering her throat. Not yet, but hiding beneath her ribs like a warm coal. Seraya cried out soundlessly. The court heard nothing, but every flame bowed. Oratha staggered. The ash listener's mark screamed. Below the palace, the buried dragons sang again. This time not names of priests. Names of places. South Furnace, Bonchoir, First Ash Gate. Vaelor's eyes lifted. Seraya pressed one hand to her chest where the flame bird burned. The dragons were mapping the route downward. Not to free them all at once. To find where the ash listener's bowl of stolen notes was kept. Oratha laughed, breathless and furious. Go below, then. Follow the dragons. Every step will loosen a seal. Every note she chooses will wake something hungrier than truth. Seraya looked at her. Her voice was almost gone again, but one whisper remained. Good. The flames roared around the word. Not because hunger was good. Because fear had ruled long enough. Vaelor turned toward the broken throne and the white gold opening beneath it. He did not offer his hand. He only stepped aside. The way is yours to choose. Seraya looked down into the singing dark below Emberfall. The flamebird beat once beneath her ribs. Fulnut, still not her whole voice. Enough to answer. She stepped past Vaelor and descended into the fire beneath the throne. Behind her, the dragon sang the next name. Not a priest. Not Oratha. A place so old the fire court forgot it had ever existed. The first throat. The first throat was not a chamber. It was a wound in the mountain. Seraya descended beneath the broken throne, with 4 stolen notes burning under her ribs, each one trembling like a small bird trying not to die. The stairs were carved from black glass and old dragon bone. Heat rose from below. But it did not burn her skin. It listened. Behind her, Vaelor followed at a distance. Not beside her. Not touching her. Behind him, the broken throne groaned as the old fire court seals tried to close again. Vaelor turned and drove both burned hands into the white gold crack. The seal caught him. Black letters crawled over his arms. King's blood maintains the throat lock. Seraya stopped. Vaelor's jaw tightened, but he did not pull away. Go, he said. She hated how much pain lived in that one word. Nut command. Cost. Oratha's voice echoed from above, sharp and furious. Majesty, if you hold that seal open, the throne will take your fire. Vaelor did not look back. Then it takes what my throne stole first. The flames around Seraya shivered. Accepted. She continued downward. The buried dragons sang softly around her now. Not full songs. Names, places, broken notes. The path opened with each sound until Seraya reached the wound. The first throat stretched beneath Emberfall like the inside of a giant dragon's mouth. Walls veined with gold flame. Floor covered in ash-white scales. Ceiling hung with chains made from ruby glass. At the center stood a silver bowl. Inside it floated hundreds of stolen notes. Tiny flames. Some golden, some blue, some nearly black. Voices taken from servants, dragons, queens, hatchlings, prisoners, and children who had heard what the throne wanted buried. Seraya's flamebird beat once inside her chest. Pain rippled through her throat. Her voice was not alone. It had never been alone. A black shadow moved behind the silver bowl. The ash listener. Masked. Thin. Tall. Wrapped in burned gray robes that looked woven from furnace smoke. Its face was hidden behind a smooth black mask with no mouth. Only 2 narrow slits glowing with ember-red light. It lifted one hand over the bowl. Every stolen note trembled. Flame. Song witness, it said. The voice did not enter Seraya's ears. It entered the scar in her throat. She nearly fell. The flame bird inside her chest flared. The ash listener tilted its head. 4 notes returned. Enough to open the first throat. Not enough to survive it. Seraya pressed one hand to her chest. Her whisper came thin. These are not yours. The ash listener's mask turned toward the bowl. They were abandoned by kings, hidden by queens, cut by priestesses, and buried by dragons too afraid to burn the throne. I only listened. A chain snapped behind Seraya. Vaelor grunted above, still holding the seal open. Oratha appeared at the top of the stairs. Red gold robe scorched. Listener's mark black at her throat. Take the bowl, she shouted to the ash listener. Before she wakes the rest. The ash listener lifted one finger. Oratha froze. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. For the first time, fear broke fully across her face. Seraya understood. Oratha had never controlled the ash listener. She had only been useful. The ash listener reached into the silver bowl and pulled out a small blue note. A dragon hatchling's cry. The buried dragons below the walls shuddered. Choose, the ash listener said. Take your 5th note, and this one burns. Save the hatchling's cry, and your voice remains incomplete. Seraya's throat tightened. There it was. Another cage shaped like choice. Her voice or another stolen song. Vaelor's voice came from above, strained with pain. Seraya. She looked back. He was on one knee, hands buried in the seal, gold fire bleeding from his arms. I cannot choose for you. Good. He had learned. The Ash listener held the blue note over black flame. The hatchling's cry twisted silently. Seraya looked at the silver bowl. So many voices. Too many to carry. Too many to save with one throat. She lifted her hand, not toward her own note, toward the bowl. Her whisper came broken, but steady. Each song names itself. The first throat went still. The Ash listener's mask tilted. Seraya stepped closer. I do not take the fifth note. The flamebird inside her chest trembled. I ask who wants to return. The silver bowl erupted. Not violently. Truthfully. The blue hatchling note tore free from the Ash listener's hand and flew into the wall, where a tiny sealed dragon opened one glowing eye. A golden queen note rose and sank into a broken crown of fire. A servant's lullaby flew upward toward the palace. A prisoner's last prayer sank into the ash floor and became light. The bowl was no longer obeying the Ash listener. It was answering itself. The Ash listener's red eyes narrowed. Oratha gasped. Voice returning. No. The bowl must be held by a keeper. Seraya looked at her. No. The word hurt, but it was hers. No more keepers who turn voices into locks. The first throat sang. The sound struck the chains above. Ruby glass cracked. Vaelor cried out as the seal pulled harder on him. Seraya turned sharply. The Ash listener moved. Fast. Its shadow shot across the floor and pierced the flamebird inside Seraya's chest. Pain exploded through her. She fell to one knee. The four notes inside her scattered. Still tethered but trembling. The Ash listener leaned close. You are not strong enough to let every voice choose. Seraya tasted blood. Maybe it was right. She was tired. Her throat was ruined. Her voice was incomplete. But she had survived too many people calling cages necessary. She pressed one shaking hand to the ash-white floor. The buried dragons answered beneath her palm. Not with power, with witness, Seraya whispered. Then do not make me strong. The flamebird lifted its head inside her. Make them heard. The four notes burst from her chest and flew into the first throat walls. For one heartbeat, Seraya had no song at all. No borrowed note. No queenfire. No dragonecho. Only her ruined throat. Only herself. Then every stolen voice in the silver bowl began to sing its own name. The Ash listener recoiled. Its mask cracked. Behind the smooth black surface was not a face. Only a hollow mouth full of stolen silence. Vaelor tore one hand free from the seal and shouted from above. Now! Seraya understood. She lifted her broken voice one last time. Not to command. To witness. Name the first voice you swallowed. The first throat went silent. The Ash listener's hollow mouth opened. A tiny sound came out. A woman's lullaby. Queen Auralyn's. Oratha collapsed against the stair wall. Vaelor went still. The Ash listener had not only stolen notes, it had swallowed the beginning of the Queen's song. The silver bowl cracked. Inside its deepest flame, a final note woke. Not Seraya's. Not Auralyn's alone. Older. The first song. It rose from the bottom of the bowl like dawn under ash, and every dragon beneath Emberfall began pulling against its chains. The first song rose from the broken silver bowl, and the chains beneath Emberfall began to scream. Not metal. Dragons. Every buried dragon pulled against its seal at once, answering the note that had lived under throne, law, and stolen silence longer than any crown had existed. Seraya knelt on the ash-white floor of the first throat, one hand pressed to her chest where the flamebird had vanished. Her four notes were no longer inside her. They were in the walls, in the bowl, in the names. For one terrifying breath, she had no song to protect her. The Ash listener stepped back from the cracked bowl. Its black mask split down the center. Behind it was no face, only a hollow mouth full of swallowed silence. It opened wider. The first song bent toward it. Vaelor shouted from the broken seal above, voice rough with pain. Seraya! She looked up. He was still holding the throne lock open with one burned hand. The other bled gold fire where he had torn it free. The old seal was trying to drag him into the crack and close over him. He could not come to her. Good. This could not be solved by a king crossing the room. The Ash listener lifted both hands. All songs return to the one who listens longest. The first song trembled. Seraya understood the lie. The Ash listener did not sing. It collected. It waited beside wounds until voices were too tired to defend themselves, then called theft patience. Oratha clung to the stair wall, pale and shaking. Do not let it take the first song. If it holds that note, it will command every sealed dragon beneath Emberfall. Seraya looked at her. The priestess was telling the truth now. Too late to be clean. The ash listener turned its cracked mask toward Seraya. You are empty again, little witness. The words should have broken her. They did not. She had been called empty before. Ruined. Silent. Ash throat. Veshel. Map. Lock. None of those names had ever told the truth. Seraya pressed her bleeding fingers to the floor. I am not empty. The first throat listened. I am not holding what belongs to others. The stolen notes in the walls began to glow. One by one they answered. A hatchling's cry returned to the tiny dragon sealed in the stone. A servant's lullaby flew upward toward a forgotten grave. A prisoner's last prayer became gold ash and vanished into peace. Queen Auralyn's broken lullaby circled the bowl, searching for its missing beginning. The ash listener hissed. Its hollow mouth stretched wider, trying to swallow the returning notes before they reached their owners. Vaelor saw it. He drove his wounded hand deeper into the throne seal. Black fire surged up his arm. He did not cry out. The seal pulled against him, but the opening widened. More voices escaped the bowl. Oratha stared at him. Majesty. The throne will burn your dragonfire hollow. Vaelor's answer came through clenched teeth. Then let it learn hunger from the other side. The first song brightened. Seraya turned toward Queen Auralyn's note. It hovered above the bowl, incomplete. The ash listener had swallowed the beginning, the part that made the lullaby whole. Seraya lifted her ruined voice. Not loud. Not strong. Hers. Return what you swallowed first. The ash listener's mask cracked wider. Auralyn's first note flickered inside its hollow mouth. The ash listener tried to close around it. Seraya reached for the nearest wall, where her own 4 notes had scattered. Not to me, she whispered. To her. The 4 notes obeyed. They flew past Seraya, past the bowl, past the ash listener's reaching hands, and struck the queen's broken lullaby. Auralyn's song completed. The first throat filled with a mother's voice. Soft, grieving. Unovned. The buried dragons stopped pulling. They listened. Above, the fire court went silent. Even the flames held still. Queen Auralyn's completed lullaby wrapped around the first song, not to cage it, but to steady it. The ash listener screamed. For the first time, it sounded afraid. Seraya rose slowly. Her legs shook. Her throat burned. But the first song did not enter her. It stood before her in white gold flame, shaped like a small open mouth made of light. Not a weapon. Not a crown. Not a voice to be worn. A beginning. The ash listener lunged. Vaelor ripped the last throne chain from the seal. The opening above exploded with gold fire, throwing him down the stairs. He hit the stone hard, but forced himself to rise to one knee. The throne lock was open. The ash listener's shadow surged toward the first song. Seraya stepped between them. Oratha gasped. It will swallow you. Seraya looked at the hollow-mouthed thing reaching for the song. No, she whispered. The flames carried her broken word through every chamber. It only swallows what is left alone. The stolen voices answered. Not as an army. As themselves. 100 notes rose from the walls. The floor, the cracked bowl, the sealed dragons, the forgotten dead. They surrounded the first song in a circle of returned voices. The ash listener struck the circle. It shattered backward. Its mask split apart completely. Inside the hollow mouth, Seraya saw thousands of trapped silences pressed together like black glass. The first song turned toward them. Seraya understood. The ash listener had once been a voice too. The first voice that tried to own all others. She did not pity it, but she would not feed it more. Name yourself, she whispered. The ash listener recoiled. The first song burned brighter. The hollow mouth trembled. Then, from deep inside its stolen silence, one ruined note emerged. Anama. Maid. Oratha's face went white. The first fire priest. Vaelor lifted his head. The first song answered with grief, not mercy. Elir, who listened until listening became hunger. Elir, who built the first bowl. Elir, who taught kings that voices could be stored. The ash listener screamed as its own name returned to it. The stolen silences inside its mouth cracked. Voices poured out. Seraya staggered as they passed her, but they did not enter her throat. They went where they belonged. To dragons. To ashes. To bones. To memory. To fire. The silver bowl collapsed into dust. The first throat opened wider. Above them, Emberfall's buried dragons stopped straining against their chains. Then one chain unlocked. Only one. A deep dragon voice rose from below. Witness heard. The first song turned toward Seraya. For one breath, she feared it would offer itself to her. Instead, it bowed. Not to a queen. Not to a vessel. To a witness. Then it sank through the floor toward the oldest sealed dragon beneath Emberfall. Oratha fell to her knees. Vaelor, burned and bleeding, looked at Seraya from the broken stair. He did not say her name like a claim. He said it like a question. Seraya? She pressed one hand to her throat. Her voice had not returned whole. But it had not been stolen again. In the ashes where the bowl had shattered, one small golden feather remained. The flamebird's feather. Seraya picked it up. It warmed in her palm. Then the first throat sang one final warning through the stones. The oldest sealed dragon has woken. The oldest sealed dragon woke beneath Emberfall without roaring. It hummed. One low note moved through the mountain, deep enough to make the fire court above fall silent and soft enough to make Seraya's broken throat ache with recognition. The note did not demand freedom. It asked who had remembered its name. Seraya stood in the first throat with the flamebird's golden feather in her palm. The silver bowl was dust. The ash listener's mask had shattered. Stolen voices drifted through the chamber, returning to dragons, bones, fire, ash, and memory. Then the floor opened. Not with violence. With breath. A spiral of white gold flame descended into the stone below, revealing a vast, sleeping shape bound in chains older than the throne. The dragon beneath Emberfall was enormous, ash-white and gold-veined, with horns like burned moonstone and eyes closed beneath layers of seal fire. Oratha whispered from the stairs. Avarian. Vaelor went still. Seraya looked at him. He knew the name. Of course he did. Kings always knew the names they were taught not to speak. The buried dragon opened one eye. The whole mountain brightened. Avarian's voice rose through the stone. Who returned the first song? Seraya's fingers closed around the feather. No one answered for her. Not Vaelor. Not Auralyn's memory. Not the dragons. Good. Her voice came thin. I did not return it alone. The oldest dragon's eyes shifted toward her. You did not claim it. No. You did not wear it. No. You let the stolen songs name themselves. Seraya swallowed against the pain in her throat. They were never mine to keep. Avarian's chains shuddered. One link broke. Only one. The sound made every flame in Emberfall bow low. Oratha laughed weakly, desperate now. One link. That is all. Do you understand? If he wakes fully, the throne line ends. Vaelor looked at the broken throne far above, then at the white gold opening, then at Seraya. His hands were still burned from holding the seal. His crown was gone. His throne was split. And still, the old law waited to see whether he would reach for ownership. Vaelor stepped down into the first throat. The flames let him pass. He stopped 3 steps from Seraya. Then he turned toward Avarian and lowered his head. The throne line should have ended the day it buried your song. The chamber shook. Oratha screamed, Majesty! Vaelor did not look back. He removed the final royal seal from his armor. A black dragonbone clasp shaped like a crowned flame. He held it up. This seal gave my bloodline authority over dragonfire. Avarian's eye burned brighter. Vaelor's voice roughened. It was built on theft. He threw the seal into the white gold flame. The clasp did not melt. It screamed. Every stolen royal command inside it burned open. Orders to seal dragons, silent singers, register flame, song children, and keep the first song beneath the throne. Seraya staggered from the force of it. Vaelor took the backlash across his own chest. Goldfire split his armor. He fell to one knee. Seraya moved instinctively, then stopped. He had chosen the cost. She would not take it from him to make herself feel merciful. Avarian's second chain cracked. The buried dragons below sang one word. Witness. Oratha backed away. If the royal seal dies, the fire court will fracture. The southern houses will invade. The sealed dragons will choose no king. Seraya looked at her. They were never supposed to choose a king. The flames carried the whisper. Avarian's eye turned toward Oratha. And who chose the knife? Oratha froze. The golden feather in Seraya's palm burned. The flame bird emerged from it, small and trembling, still protecting the unfinished pieces of Seraya's voice. It flew to the center of the chamber and released the fifth note. Seraya inhaled sharply. This one did not ask to enter her. It asked to show. She nodded. The fifth note struck Oratha's burned listener's mark. A memory opened. Oratha stood years ago before Avarian's sleeping chain. She was younger, afraid, kneeling beside the ash listener's silver bowl. The masked figure placed the knife in her hands. Cut the child's song, the ash listener said, or the first song will wake through her. Oratha whispered, and if I refuse? The ash listener turned the bowl toward a line of chained hatchlings. Then they scream until the throne hears. The memory vanished. Seraya stared at Oratha. Not forgiveness, not pity, but understanding sharpened into something colder. You chose the knife to avoid hearing them scream. Oratha's face cracked. I chose the kingdom. No, Seraya whispered. You chose silence because it sounded cleaner than pain. The fire accepted the truth. Oratha collapsed to her knees. The listener's mark at her throat burned away, leaving raw skin and a voice no longer protected by law. Avarian's third chain cracked. The mountain groaned. Vaelor lifted his head, breathing hard. How many chains? Avarian answered. One for every law that made song into property. Seraya looked toward the fire court above. Then at Vaelor. Then at Oratha. There were too many laws. Too many seals. Too many voices stolen in the name of safety. She could not break them all with one throat. She should not have to. Seraya lifted the flame bird's feather. I choose one law. The chamber listened. The law that says a ruined voice cannot testify. The fifth note flared. Above them, in the fire court, black letters burned across every pillar. The old rule appeared for all to see. A broken throat may not stand witness in flame. Seraya's eyes burned. How many times had silence been made into proof against the silent? Vaelor rose unsteadily. His voice carried upward through the broken throne. By my blood, and by the throne I have broken, that law is ended. The queen fire answered. The buried dragons answered. The fire court pillars cracked. Avarian's fourth chain shattered. Seraya felt something loosen in her own throat. Not her whole voice. Not yet. But a path. A narrow one. Enough for truth to pass without tearing her open. The flame bird flew back to her shoulder. It pressed its golden head against her scar. Warmth spread there. Seraya breathed in. A sound left her mouth. Small. Rough. Not a song. A note. Hers. Every fire in the chamber bowed. Vaelor heard it, and closed his eyes as if the sound hurt and healed him at once. Oratha wept silently on the stone. Avarian's massive eye softened. Flame song witness, the ancient dragon said. The first song does not ask you to free every chain tonight. Seraya's legs trembled. What does it ask? Avarian's answer shook the mountain. Open the court so every stolen voice may choose whether to return. The final words rose upward through Emberfall. Above, the fire court doors burst open. Servants, prisoners, lower furnace workers, dragon keepers, and ash-marked children stood beyond them, drawn by the song. The court nobles turned in horror. Seraya looked at Vaelor. He looked back at her from 3 steps away. No throne behind him, no seal in his hand. What do you need? He asked. Seraya's new note trembled in her throat. She answered with one word. Doors. Vaelor turned toward the fire court above and lifted his burned hands. Open every furnace gate. Oratha looked up sharply. If you do that, they will all hear. Seraya stepped toward the stairs, Flamebird bright on her shoulder. Avarian's white gold eye burning beneath the floor. That is the point. Above them, the first furnace gate opened, and from behind it came hundreds of ruined voices, waiting to decide whether they wanted to sing. The first furnace gate opened, and hundreds of ruined voices waited behind it. They did not rush out. They did not scream. They waited. That frightened the fire court more than any roar would have. Seraya stood on the broken stair beneath the throne, the flamebird glowing on her shoulder, one small real note trembling in her throat. Below her, Avarian's ancient white gold eye watched from the first throat. Above her, Servants, prisoners, ash-marked children, dragon keepers, and lower furnace workers filled the opened court doors. For the first time, the fire court had to look at the people it had called silent. Vaelor stood 3 steps behind Seraya with burned hands, and no throne left whole behind him. He did not speak first. Good. The first ruined voice came from behind the furnace gate. A girl's whisper. May I return? Seraya's throat tightened. No law had ever asked that. No priest had ever asked that. No king had ever asked that. The flamebird lowered its golden head. Seraya answered with the small note she had earned. Yes. The voice flew out as a pale gold flame and crossed the hall toward a young ash-marked girl near the lower doors. The child gasped as the flame entered her chest, then touched her throat with both hands. A tiny sob escaped her. Her own. The court went still. Another voice asked. Then another. Some returned to living throats. Some flew into ashes kept in funeral bowls. Some sank into dragonbone walls. Some rose upward through open vents toward graves no one had marked. Not every voice wanted to return as sound. That mattered. Seraya lifted her head. Each voice chooses. The flames carried her words without stealing them. The furnace gates opened one by one. Golden, blue, white, and ember-red notes poured out. Not as chaos, but as a sky of choices. The fire court nobles backed away as the ruined voices passed them. None of the notes attacked. That made the guilt worse. Oratha knelt near the broken pillars, her listener's brand burned from her throat, her veil gone, her face bare at last. A child's voice hovered before her, small, trembling. Oratha recognized it and broke. No, the voice did not enter her. It circled her once, then flew into the arms of an old furnace worker who collapsed weeping. Seraya watched Oratha's face. The priestess had spent years calling silence safety. Now every returned voice proved what safety had cost. A Varian's voice rose from below. Name the hand that made silence holy. The fire court turned toward Oratha. Vaelor's sword lay on the steps. He did not reach for it. Seraya looked at him. He looked back and asked, What does truth need? She answered, Not death first. He nodded once, then faced the court. Oratha Vane will live. The priestess looked up sharply. Fear crossed her face. Death would have been cleaner. Vaelor's voice carried through the hall. Every dawn, she will open one furnace record. Every voice sealed by her law will be named before the court, the lower halls, and the dragons beneath Emberfall. If she lies, the fire will answer. The queen fire flared. Accepted. Oratha bowed her head to the stone. Seraya felt no triumph. Only the exhaustion of a wound finally believed. The flame bird lifted from her shoulder and flew to the central brazier. It circled once above the queen fire, carrying the remaining sealed pieces of Seraya's voice. Seraya reached toward it, then stopped. Not all at once. The realization came softly. Her voice had been taken piece by piece. It did not have to return as a flood to prove it was hers. She lowered her hand. Only what is ready, she whispered. The flame bird sang one warm note. A second sound opened in Seraya's throat. Small, rough, alive. She breathed it out. The hall heard. Vaelor closed his eyes but did not move closer. Good. Her voice was not a bridge for him to cross. Not yet. Maybe never. Queen Auralyn's completed lullaby rose from the central fire, wrapping around the returning voices. The melody did not crown Seraya. It did not name her queen. It did not command dragons to kneel. It simply made room. Avarion's chains below cracked again. Not all. Enough. The ancient dragons spoke. Flamesong is not property. Not throne. Not priesthood. Not weapon. The words burned across the fire court pillars. No voice shall be sealed for hearing truth. The servants beyond the doors repeated the line first. Then the dragon keepers. Then the wounded children. At last, even some nobles whispered it. Not because they were brave, but because the fire left them nowhere clean to hide. Vaelor stepped before the broken throne. My rule begins again beneath that law, he said. Then he turned to Seraya. Not claiming. Not asking. Only naming. I made your humiliation the door truth entered through. Seraya's eyes burned. Yes. I thought the fire answering first would protect you. Yes. And I still made you stand alone while they laughed. The flamebird quieted. The whole hall waited. Seraya's voice was small, but it did not break. Yes. Vaelor bowed his head. I will not ask forgiveness tonight. Good. Pain crossed his face. He accepted it. What may I do? Seraya looked at the furnace gates. At the returned voices. At Oratha kneeling beneath the law she had used as a knife. At the broken throne and the old dragon watching beneath it. Keep the doors open, she said. Vaelor turned at once. Every furnace gate remains open. Every lower hall worker may enter the fire court as witness. Every sealed dragon name will be recorded by its own voice, not by priesthood decree. The fire tested the words, then accepted them. Dawn reached Emberfall through the high windows, turning smoke into silver-gold light. The court no longer looked like a place where flames obeyed nobles. It looked like a place that had finally learned to listen. Seraya stood before the central brazier, throat scarred, voice unfinished. Flamebird perched above the queen fire. She was not healed into prettiness, not crowned into safety, not claimed by the Dragon King, not made into a weapon because her pain had become useful. She was witness, a ruined voice returning at its own pace. Below the broken throne, Avarian hummed the first song softly enough that no chain had to break that morning. Above, Queen Auralyn's lullaby answered, and when Seraya opened her mouth, only one word came out. Her name. Seraya. It was rough. It was quiet. It was hers. Vaelor stood 3 steps away, burned hands lowered, waiting without reaching. The flames bowed. Not to a queen. Not to a throne. To the girl whose song had survived outside her throat until she was ready to choose it.